Welcome to the last session of the last day of the conference, except for the one that comes after. There's one more after me. But they told me I had the keynote. I'm like, great. And they say it's day 4 o'clock. I'm like, great. That's great. No, you guys are great because you're here. You're troopers. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it this far. Good job, guys. You are the hardcore. You're the people that are dedicated. So welcome. So my name is Seth Earley, and I am CEO and founder of Earley Information Science. I forgot I didn't put a bio slide on here, but you can check out my LinkedIn profile at the end of the deck, and you can connect with me. So here we are, 4 days after this conference. There was lots and lots of content. There's a deluge of information. 4 days of workshops, keynotes, conversations, all sorts of things, 100 sessions covering all aspects of information management. And of course, now what do you do with that? How do you take that and do something that is actionable? How do you execute on these insights? So I'm going to give you a framework for thinking about that and really translating these themes into the problems that users are having and the capabilities that you need to build. So, of course, you had search and discovery, taxonomy, information architecture, text processing. Of course, AI cuts across all of this. And I look at this as one ecosystem. I don't think of these as separate initiatives. Now, why do people think of it as separate initiatives? Because it depends on who owns the problem, and depends on the structure of the organization. So many times you have the same problem that'll show up in different ways, and people think of them in different ways. I have a search problem. No, you actually have a content problem. Well, I have a content problem. Well, you actually have a metadata problem, or a content operations problem, or a governance problem. So these are interconnected. These, AI connects all of them. AI amplifies all of them. So think of this as, think of these different themes, these different conference tracks as a lens or lenses through which to look at the problems and look at the things that your organizations are dealing with. And what you want to do is find patterns. You want to find what themes are occurring over and over again when you start to talk to users. And then you can start to see where these themes integrate. And I'm going to talk about a maturity model a little bit later that really looks across these things. A knowledge management maturity model does have content operations. It does have information architecture. It does have governance. It has all of these different things. And text analytics has really been an AI application. When we talked about text analytics years and years ago, we didn't talk about AI, right? We didn't even talk about machine learning. We talked about entity extraction. We talked about content classification, things like that. But really, it was an AI application. So what you want to do is once you start identifying these patterns, then you want to prioritize based on two things: business impact and current capabilities, current maturity. Because it's very difficult to have an advanced capability when you do not have the foundation. And we're going to talk about that. So rather than, you want a framework to make decisions. So rather than trying to implement all this stuff, obviously you want to think of this separate from tools. This is a framework for understanding the user needs, looking at the overarching themes, and then building the capabilities or understanding the capabilities that you need to build. Right? So we're getting away from worrying about this from a taxonomy perspective. We're looking at user problems. There may be taxonomy themes in there, which there will be, there always are. But then what we want to do is we want to start with the problems, right? We want to start with, and everybody kind of knows this, but still you have organizations that are going at this from a technology perspective. And so we want to understand what's occurring to them day to day. They'll say, I can't find stuff, right? That's the overarching theme you always get. We're trying to find things. And when we're doing with AI, is we're really making up for our past sins in poor data curation, and poor data management, and poor data hygiene. And so, we're experts are leaving the organization, right? We have to capture that knowledge. We can't scale the knowledge capture. AI pilots aren't providing the value. Why is that? So you want to start talking to your users and start identifying the problems that they're having and look at their behaviors, look at their information behaviors today. And you want to understand what I call the information leverage points. Where in the process do you have a bottleneck, or do you have a place where you could have a business impact if you have faster information, better information, or information that you don't have today, right? So you want to look at those moments of need or information leverage points. They are things that you can do that'll have a big downstream impact and affect multiple processes. So when you're doing this, you're trying to understand. You can certainly survey people. You have to create surveys with a certain structure, but you're trying to observe. You're trying to identify the things that they struggle with day to day. And it's not they don't need a taxonomy. They need to solve a problem, right? So you have to frame everything from the problem. Yes, a taxonomy is going to help. Right? Search is going to help. AI is going to be a capability that's going to build on those fundamental, foundational pieces. So now that you have some of your user needs and you are looking at these patterns and you're recognizing these patterns, now you want to start connecting those to themes. So think of the conference themes as a way of diagnosing your problem. And again, as you start talking to people, they're going to see their needs in different ways. They're going to think of it as, I'm creating content and then I don't have an ability to tag it, or I can't find the stuff that I created last week, whatever that might be. But what problems relate to discovery and search? What problems relate to information architecture? So you're identifying the patterns, and then you're going back and saying, what are the fundamental themes that these patterns are identifying? What are the root causes of these issues? Where do we need to do a better job of sharing knowledge? Which processes could be useful in terms of text analytics? And text analytics will help us identify what content is being used and what content is most effective and whether the content is solving a problem. So we need to think about understanding the structure of our content, and we need to think about how that content is performing. And then AI is an amplifier, right? It's an amplifier of these different pieces, but it depends on those foundational elements. So subject matter experts are spending a lot of time answering questions. Well, that's certainly knowledge sharing. That's certainly search. That's certainly categorization and classification. And we might have a retrieval augmented generation application to solve that problem. So again, it's not a single point. It's a knowledge ecosystem. It's an information ecosystem. And what we're trying to do is speed up the information metabolism of the organization. Give people the ability to make faster decisions, better decisions, to be able to take their inputs and create faster outputs and more effective outputs. And then once you start understanding those themes, now you want to say, okay, I don't want to think of this as a tool. I want to think of this as a capability. What's the capability? SharePoint is a collaboration tool. It's a way of creating content and reusing content. A taxonomy is a way of organizing information. So it's a classification mechanism. So this is a capability. We need AI? No, you don't need AI. You need content recommendations, or you need personalization, or you need better retrieval. You need question answering systems, not just search retrieving a bunch of documents, right? That's what we're trying to do with AI. So when you think about where you are, maturity is so important because it's going to be impossible to build an advanced capability if you don't have the building blocks, right? So you need to think of where you are. You have to have content governance. If content is not owned, it goes out of date. Every piece of content needs an owner. Content governance and content operations are absolutely critical. We did a workshop on Monday. We talked a lot about content operations and governance in order to scale generative AI. I'll give you an opportunity at the end of the deck to request those slides, because there's a lot of great exercises you can take back and do at your organization. Metadata management. We need to have a way of intentionally categorizing things. When everybody is left to their own devices, you're going to get inconsistency across departments, across applications, across business units. We need to have search optimized. Why? Because retrieval augmented generation is search, right? We're using the large language model to understand the user's query, to make the answer more conversational, but what are we doing in between? We're retrieving, we're searching, right? So if search is broken, retrieval is broken, and it won't work. So that's why we have to optimize search. And we have to have the processes for capturing knowledge. And again, content operations are critical. Then you can start building on these things. And once you have the basics, you can start doing things in an automated way. You can start having better search, more intelligent search, expert identification. You have the ability to activate those insights. And then you start looking at the transformation capabilities, which would be AI powered. But again, they need to build on these foundational elements. So, what is the maturity? So when you think about it, you want to start listing those capabilities that you're seeing across your user needs, right? You want to look at the top 3 or 5 user needs and say, what do we need to have in terms of in terms of capability? And then how mature are we in those areas? Because I'll show you this model in just a minute. If you're at stage 1 and you don't have any processes, well, it's going to be very difficult to build an application that requires a stage 4 or stage 5 maturity. And we'll talk about what that means. But you can't do that in 6 months and $50,000, right? It takes a long time and a lot of work and a lot of attention to be able to build these capabilities. And we want to understand, where are we today? Where are we today? And then what maturity does our capability require? What maturity does our capability require? And then look at that gap. Look at that gap between where you are. And then you have to sequence with those dependencies in mind, right? We sequence our projects so that we can build incrementally on them and build those capabilities for the long term. So again, the tools are changing all the time. Capabilities endure. So you're building capabilities and then you're using whatever tools are best of breed or in the market or what you have. But you have to think about what people do and what the organization needs to do, not necessarily what you need to acquire. This is a maturity model. I know it's an eye chart. It's not meant to be read. I'm just showing you this because we have lots of maturity models for content operations, for governance, for e-commerce. This is just one example, and you have to say, well, where are we today? And there are characteristics of each of these stages of maturity, from I don't have anything to content management, knowledge management, nirvana, right? What is that future state? And it doesn't mean you have to be stage 5 for everything. You just need to know what level of maturity needs to be in place in order for us to do the things we need to do. Now, here's an example of, I usually use this as a build, but my animations weren't coming through and I couldn't mess with that. But what we're doing is we're building content operations for specific cognitive assistance, for specific bots. But this is what it's going to look like, right? As we evolve, people are building these things, and you don't want this. This is further fragmentation of knowledge. What you want is create once, publish everywhere. Guess what? That requires a lot of maturity. The organization that did this handles 1 million knowledge transactions per day, and they've had it in place for 10 years, and they use data. They use component authoring. Component authoring is necessary to build a question-answer system, which is what we're building with cognitive assistance and bots and AI operations. Create once, publish everywhere. This is used for field service. It's used for customer self-service. It's used for call centers. It's used for channel marketing, partner marketing, all sorts of things. They're saving hundreds of millions of dollars by doing this. And this is necessary for what you're doing today. So when you bring it back, you need to start thinking about, again, having conversations with your stakeholders. Start thinking about those insights, sharing the insights with people, saying, this is what I learned this week. Here are some ideas. And you start mapping those to their challenges. And you want to understand what's going to have the biggest impact. What do you need today to do your job more effectively? And then when you start documenting these patterns, you want to start sharing one-pagers. You want to create a one-pager that talks about the needs, the themes, and the capabilities. So you're directly mapping this to your organization, to the problems people are having, and then you can start sharing that with your leadership and with your peers. Now, again, you start identifying quick wins. What can we do now? What can we do in a very short time frame? And then what do we need to do strategically? What's going to take longer to do? And you want to start getting commitment, but you have to take different messaging to different audiences. So for leadership, it has to be about business outcomes. It has to be about risk mitigation. For IT, it's about architecture and integration. That's what they care about. For users, it's solving their problems day to day. And the peers, it's like, what are we going to do strategically, and what do we need to do for our careers, right? Because if you're not ahead of this thing, it's going to get ahead of you, right? You need to be able to have a seat at the table and do this. So the takeaway is, you want to start thinking about what you need to do for your organization. And using a framework like this starts to connect those themes to capabilities and to business problems. So you have insights, right? Now you have a framework and you can start taking this back and mapping those needs. So don't let this stuff disappear, right? You want to execute. Pick something and start exploring it right away because, again, you want to be able to execute a strategy. A strategy is not worth anything unless you can execute. This is the QR code I mentioned. If you want to get slides to the workshop that we did, there's lots of other assets. And, all week I keep forgetting to talk about our podcast. It's ranked as a top 50 AI podcast in the world. And I'm like, yeah, I forgot. I keep forgetting. So anyway, the podcast. You can check out the podcast and connect with me on LinkedIn. And with that, I think I lied to you. I said I was going to let you out a minute early. I didn't. So thank you for your time.